Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Epic Events. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Candace, and I'm the Director of Event Programming and Creative Services here at vFairs. So good to see all of you. I'm joined today by my colleague, Brianne Snell, who is the Content Manager here at vFairs. We are here with our first episode in our event marketing series, How to Effectively Market Your Virtual Event. And today we'll be talking specifically about the first step in this process, how to create really great content for your event. Hi, Brianne. Welcome to this Epic Events episode.
Hi, Candace. Happy to be here, and thanks for having me on.
So Brianne, you have lots of experience in the content marketing space, and I think that experience would be really beneficial to our audiences as they try to cut through the ever-growing noise online, as we all know, and really build interest about their events to their audiences. So let's go ahead and get right into the agenda today. We'll be covering how to create effective marketing content that really grabs your audience, their attention, and to take action and to actually join your event. We all want those conversion rates to be really high, right? So in this episode, we'll cover how to create messaging that adds value for various audiences you'd like to participate in your event, how to write effective copy that resonates and reflects your message, how to create graphics that support your message, and to tell a story that's very well-rounded, some best practices and tips to drive action, and how to develop content for different channels. And just a quick reminder, really quick before we get started, drop your questions in the Q&A widget and we'll answer them throughout this presentation. So Brianne, let's get right into it. Firstly, where do you start when creating event marketing messaging?
So the best place is to start by asking yourself a few questions. What is it for? When and where is it? Who is this event for? And why would someone want to attend? The first two questions, what is it for? When and where is it? Those are your event details. I think those are pretty straightforward. I want to touch on the last two questions and how they interact to firm up a lot of your underlying messaging. And I want to spend some time talking about messaging because it's really easy to overlook and just jump right into copy and graphics. But it's really important to have a deep understanding of all the various groups you're looking to attract to your event and how to create value for them. So you might be looking to bring one or all of the following roles into your event: attendees, sponsors, exhibitors, speakers, perhaps even event partners. And each of these roles are going to have different needs when it comes to value you're communicating. And of course, it's likely you have different aspects of your event plan to create that value. So now you just need to figure out how best to communicate it. So just like you have different features to serve different audiences, i.e. you have exhibitor booths for exhibitors to interact with their audiences, you have interactive webinars for speakers to share information. You also need to cater to each audience differently when promoting your event. So in order to create value in your messaging, you really need to address the why. What is the value proposition that you're offering to each different audience? Each group's why or value prop is going to be different for attendees, sponsors, exhibitors, and speakers. So you have to consider these groups separately and make sure that each of them address specific questions for each group. So I just want to go through each group one by one and break them down a little bit further. For attendees, their why might be a bunch of different things depending on what type of event you're actually hosting. So at a conference, for example, attendees will be looking to learn more about a given topic, might want to have some networking opportunities available to them. For a trade show, on the other hand, they might be looking for new vendors or clients to meet with and gather leads or buy new products. It could go either way. If there's any kind of training or learning element to your event, attendees are going to want to understand what they can achieve. So is that certifications? Is there some kind of proprietary industry knowledge that they're gaining? So for attendees in general, you can address the why they should attend based on what they will learn or who they will have opportunities to network with. For sponsors and exhibitors, they'll attend to get in front of each audience that matches their own customer bases or to get into new markets. So within your messaging, you want to address the business value that they'll stand to gain by participating in your event. This could come by way of reach, networking opportunities, or potential monetary gain. In terms of speakers, they could be looking for opportunities to establish thought leadership in a certain space. They could be looking to make new connections with your attendees through conversations about their presented topic. Or honestly, they might be looking for an opportunity to monetize where they're being paid to present a topic that they really dominate. Well, speakers are gonna already be having conversations internally about what types of speakers you want, what you'd like for them to talk about, and even probably whether or not you're willing to spend money on them to present. So within your messaging, you should address all of these things. Be really clear about what types of speakers you're looking for and explain what the speaker stands to gain by participating, whether that's increased visibility or influence as a thought leader, networking opportunities, and again, possible monetary gain. In short, your audience wants to know who else will be there in general. So your sponsors and exhibitors want to know who your attendees will be and vice versa. This is a really simple takeaway, but generally the main value prop is always in the people and the discussions and not necessarily the features of your event.
Right. I mean, that's a lot just right there in the past couple of minutes that you've given, Brianne. Really great kind of touching on the sponsors, the audience, and, for event planners, where they really begin when they even start planning these events is tapping into knowing this audience that they're going to be serving. When you look at the audience, you kind of know where to base your event plan. I know I'm going into more of the planning section because that's just kind of, my area, but the why is so important, the who as well, like you mentioned. And once you've done this step, you get better ideas of who they want to see speak, what kind of sponsors will actually want to come and sponsor and set up exhibits, booths and speak. All these things tend to fall in place once you have those first couple of things taken care of and checked off the list, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So what kind of information would be helpful for each audience to have to be able to decide whether the event is even worth participating in?
So for attendees, things like speakers and the topics they'll present, companies that are sponsoring and exhibiting, even demographics of other attendees would be useful. And again, anything they stand to achieve by way of certifications, accreditation, learning opportunities is really important information to share too. For sponsors, exhibitors, and even speakers, you'll want to share any anticipated attendance numbers, industries that'll be present, attendee roles and seniority levels, areas of interest, companies that plan to attend, anything that helps them understand the value of the people who will be at the event. It would be beneficial to take it one step further. If you have past event metrics or combined buying power available to you, share that with your sponsors and exhibitors. So that they can kind of accurately evaluate the ROI of participating in your event.
Right. And I know for sponsors, this is a really big thing for them to come to the table and to pay for a package, to exhibit at a specific, let's say it's a conference type virtual event. They want to know these metrics you're talking about. They want to make sure that the return on their investment is going to be worth coming and building, the booth and all the materials, the documents, having staff there, whether it's, hybrid in person or virtual. A lot of sponsors want to see even, past conference list of, what types of people from companies and what roles they played to make sure that this really is the audience that the sponsor wants to be in front of. So these are really important, items to really consider when you're sponsoring, even when you're attending, wanting to get in front of some of these people. Very good. I love that. That's great, Brianne. So, you have your messaging firmed up for each audience you like to target, but after that's completed, what's the next step that, someone should take?
So the next step naturally is to translate that messaging into copy and graphics. It's really important to understand that messaging is a little bit different from copy and graphics. It's the underlying support for both, but the messaging itself isn't necessarily copy. So what you want to actually do before you write any copy is research. It's really important to understand how your audiences speak so that you can speak their language too. This is more of a tip from like my content marketing brain, but I think it's highly applicable even in the context of marketing your event. It's a really important step just to help you cut through all of the noise online and directly address your audiences. Chances are that, like, unless your event is really niche, there are other conversations online and maybe competing events that are vying for people's attention and action too. And one thing that I learned in a recent training seminar that was really eye-opening for me is that you're not just competing with other content online, you're also competing with time. So people are really busy, and even if they love their brand, they have limited time in the day. So you need to get to the point and like exactly the way that they want you to.
Agreed.
So you can use actual like words, phrases that your attendees, sponsors, exhibitors, speakers, they're actually using themselves. That way you're going to catch their eye and really help them understand really quickly the value of your event. So the chances are you probably have a good idea of how your audience speaks. But if you are a bit newer to it, there are a few ways you can figure that out. These are just kind of quick tips for how to start firming up your own copy. Firstly, like look around on the internet, see how others are talking about your event's subject matter. What words are they using? Do you see anything pop up continually across other people's content or landing pages or event collateral? How are your competitors speaking about those same topics and to those same audiences? And what are they saying to try and attract them? So really like note down what is being discussed, how it's being discussed, as well as what's not being said. So if there are any value adds that your event brings to the table, it's a great way to differentiate yourself. If you have any access to customer or user feedback internally, listen to calls or recordings and read comments that people have already left you about the topic via blog replies, email replies, even social media. Another way that we've actually just started kind of firming up messaging for our own events is getting qualitative feedback from people who are already engaged with you. So you can set up a feedback form, ask people to share their thoughts about what value an event like yours would bring to them, and then use that as copy. So kind of like I mentioned, just make notes about the common words they're using across these media and try to emulate that. It might be the difference between promoting speaking opportunities or thought leadership opportunities to your speakers within your content, depending on the words that people use themselves, and they're going to resonate with one or the other a little bit more closely. So words really do matter. And once you have a good idea of the language that you're using around your event and the subject matter, you can start aligning it to your messaging to get started with your copy. So apply those common words and descriptions to your own value props to directly address your audience's pain points. And then you're more effectively sharing how your event can solve the challenges that they actually face.
Yeah, I mean, these tips you're giving are really invaluable. Doing the research is really where a lot of this stems from. The success even of the whole event starts here. And the feedback really is invaluable. If you can get in front of the audience who's maybe attended this same event before, ask them what they want to see happen at the next one. How could we make it better? Where was the quality found? Did they want more networking opportunities to get in face-to-face with each other? That sort of thing. This is really the biggest piece of this, knowing where to go next. And even from the planner standpoint, how to plan, where to pivot, and where to do something new that you didn't last time at the same event. Polling is huge too. I know it's a fun way to really get quick answers rather than kind of going through a very long type of feedback based survey. So polling is also a good opportunity as well, don't you think?
Oh yeah, we use polls all the time. We'll just set them up on LinkedIn and just get a quick kind of feedback to make sure that we're on the right track, or if we're missing something, we can kind of pivot really quickly to accommodate what people need, for sure.
Yeah, and with surveys, both are really great. Both are invaluable surveys, and also polling. Polling is something that's quick. You can turn it around, and post it again to LinkedIn, like you mentioned. I think it usually stays up for a week. Just getting all those kind of votes in, you get the metrics of how many people voted, where they voted, so you know what to do next. I'm sure you're going to tell us what to do next, but that really sounds like a good way to catch people's attention, right?
Definitely.
What can you do next up, Brianne, to drive action and actually get registrations and attendees after the initial interest is peaked? Because we all know it's great to have 2,500 registrants, but if only 30 people show up, we want to drive that conversion rate up, because again, if you have sponsors who are coming to these events, they're probably coming for leads. And knowing that 30 people showed up, that's a dangerous place for an event planner to be in. Because you don't want to have to, again, after the event, go through feedback with the sponsor and then not be happy because only 30 people showed up when 2,500 people registered. And so doing all this research ahead of time, going back to this point, is really crucial to the setup and the success of the event, also setting up your sponsors for success.
Absolutely. And there are a few kind of things that we can play on to drive action within our copy. I've pointed out 3 for the purposes of this conversation. I'm sure there are lots more, but these are ones that we've found really effective in our own kind of event planning and promotions. So the first is the feeling of scarcity. Scarcity drives people to act really immediately because they don't know how long an opportunity is going to last. Like, will an attendee be able to buy a ticket in a week? Will speakers be able to submit topic proposals before space fills up? They don't know. So they act more swiftly on the call to action. And so you can create scarcity by either like putting a deadline on your registrations and sales. You can create a capacity for your event, even if it's a virtual event and you do have unlimited capacity. There is still a little bit of a feeling of scarcity, and it makes it a little bit more effective if you just have a certain amount that you would like to invite. Or having early bird specials or different discounts for people who act sooner. That's a really good way to just kind of drive action right up front. We also have to touch on the idea of FOMO. I know we talk about this a lot internally. I think it might be one of your favorite words. But
I think you're right about that. I think I'm Queen FOMO over here.
Yeah, it's awesome though. It's so powerful, and it really does get people to take action. So if people feel like they're going to be the only person or organization to not have opportunities in their field, they're going to want to join. So this works kind of by promoting like the best of your event, either attendees with high buying power for people like sponsors, exhibitors, Fortune 500 companies that attendees might be able to kind of network with, influencer speakers, specific networking opportunities, or even like these once in a lifetime activities that people just don't want to miss out on. So these can like really drive someone to feel like if they don't attend your event, they feel like they have more that they'll lose compared to if like the price of a ticket or a sponsorship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with this point on FOMO. In my experience, even adding in exciting prizes is another way to get their attention. Now, I know this could go back to knowing your audience. For a lot of the audiences that I worked with, a lot of them, when I was planning events like these, were in technology. So these were guys who they wanted every prize out there. They wanted to be there. There was definitely some creation of FOMO along the way, promoting these types of events. But I've seen in some cases where simply adding in prizes help drive attendance up by 30%. Now that's huge when you look at that in the grand scheme of things. Going back to that example a minute ago of 2,500 people registered. I mean, when you take, 30% of that, increasing that in attendance, that's really huge and can be a game changer to not only the event itself, but also going back to the sponsor. I have a big heart for sponsors, getting and helping them drive those leads to help them come back and to keep their businesses growing and thriving, and creating even the FOMO for sponsors. Hey, we talk about FOMO on the attendee side. We could do a whole other episode on just creating this around sponsorship. But going back to my point about driving attendance just by adding prizes and a gamification, which is huge, of course, in the virtual event realm. Now the audience, was mainly going back to gamers. So this really attracted them. So for an example, it's like, who doesn't want a Lego Star Wars Imperial Star Destroyer building kit worth $700? Now listen, I don't even know what I just said. My husband will be proud of me for knowing what this is, but I did some research. And even prizes like this really get people geeked out.
For sure. I know a few people even at vFairs who would probably sign up for this event just to be able to win something like that. So
Yeah.
it
I
works.
think you and I have a couple of names we
Yeah.
definitely we know
For
of.
for sure. One like final way to drive action, it's not applicable to every event, but it is pretty effective as well, is to create kind of a feeling of exclusivity. So people love to feel as if they're like part of an elite or a top tier group that not everyone can access. So it kind of plays on their ego to make them feel really accomplished. And we all like to feel good about ourselves, right? Even going back to being the winner of a big prize, you're special in that case. So this is a good strategy to use with speakers, exclusive sponsors, but it can be used for attendees and exhibitors also in the right setting. And you can create a feeling of exclusivity by including language that feels a little more personal. So if you tell someone you've been handpicked for an exclusive opportunity, they're going to give the offer a second thought. Just make sure that you actually are using exclusivity as a tactic and that the event actually does have a level of exclusivity, or they're going to lose trust and interest really quickly.
Yeah, I think you hit, the nail on the head here. The language that you're talking to your audience in is really crucial here. VIP, when we think of some sort of in-person event or a type of event like a concert, who doesn't want that VIP pass, right? That backstage pass, even sitting close up, sitting in a box seat. We want that experience, and we can create that virtually as well. Creating that FOMO, the exclusivity that you also talked about, that sense of not wanting to miss out is really important here. So let's talk a little bit now about graphics. One of my favorite things, talking about design and graphics with these types of events. How do they play into event content? How do you marry both of these worlds together? Content and graphics.
Okay, I have to caveat this and say I am not a design expert, but there are some things that I've picked up from the team here at vFairs, including yourself, Candace, that tend to ring true for most events. So the first thing is that you want your event to act as an extension of your larger brand. So you want to make sure that your event's colors, patterns, fonts, all contribute to making your brand as a whole stronger and more recognizable. So bringing consistency to your designs are going to strengthen your brand recognition, and it's going to make it easier for your audience to resonate with it. We've actually hosted events in the past that have kind of acted as an extension of our brand, where they weren't exactly what you would find on our marketing site, but the graphics were based in our vFairs brand. For example, we hosted our Event Tier Awards in February of this year. It was a gala style event, so the theme was much more elevated to what we usually market ourselves as, but we never lost our original brand elements in the marketing or design itself.
Yeah, this is a huge thing, graphics. And, with technology and design software out there, I often say sky is the limit, and I really do mean it. We say that internally quite a bit, and we have this amazing skill set from our marketing team, including you, our design team here at vFairs, where we kind of see this in action, where we're making it happen and also be an example to customers of what they can do to see this happening too. But the messaging and the graphics coming together, sometimes I've seen where in other instances and examples where, you have two teams, one is completely solely going off of design. The other is really about, creating that brand awareness, putting the content on these graphics. And when they come together, if they're not in line as far as communication and the goal of the event, they can lose track a little bit. And you kind of know it. I mean, that is the first thing that you see when you go to a landing page, is that hero banner at the top. And that's what's going to be a reflection of the event. That's the first thing that a potential attendee will see before they even register. And you want that to be something that is eye candy to them. You want it to catch their attention. And I think this is where a lot of this is, it's easy for some people to understand, and then others, they're still kind of getting the hang of it. So I think this will really help a lot of people out there listening about how to kind of bring these two worlds together and help them collide in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to what you were saying before, like virtual events are a great space to play around with what's possible. Like based on your original brand experience. And kind of what you were getting into about kind of those complementary aspects of a landing page or any really piece of content that you're using to promote an event. It is really important to put thought into like, how can you make it an impactful image, whether that's like a moving video, static graphic, or a GIF, while it's also complementing copy. So like you have to kind of put some thought into what about the image or the video is going to appeal to audiences. Does it actually help share information? And is it visually inspiring? Those are some really important questions to ask as you're going through and developing imagery for your promotional content.
Yeah, that's a good example of the hero image and banner we use for DiscoverNext. You know, the GIF or GIF, depending on, you know, what side you're on out there, where the design, the specific one that we use, where the design was actually moving through space, and, you know, we had stars as well, and, you know, the earth and some planets and the sun. That was just the overall thing that we used, but it worked really well, and it was very complementary to the text that was also within that banner. It was nice on the eye, you know, you saw like stars, who doesn't want to see that, you know, and kind of coming together with content. And it really helped for us to set the experience from the audience and the attendees perspective. Looking at the landing page, you want it also to feed into the actual environment, which that could be, again, another episode. We could go into design for, you know, the environment that you can use too, but it really helps to carry out the execution of planning and marketing and design of the event. I know it's probably small to a lot of people just thinking about this hero image and banner, but it's huge. So I'm going to get off of my soapbox now, but you get the idea. You know, just the inspiration and the appeal without it being too overwhelming is really what we were going for. And I think we achieved that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of going to get back on your soapbox, especially about the idea that like we use GIFs and videos really heavily on the DiscoverNext landing page. And that's because they usually are a lot more eye-catching. They're a lot easier for people to consume information. I found a study that showed when it comes to advertising, specifically on Facebook, video ads actually receive 2 to 3 times more click-throughs than static images. And I would actually suggest that this is pretty reflective of driving action across all marketing content. So if you have a good video to communicate to your audiences, you're probably more likely to drive action.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that makes complete sense too. Who doesn't want to see something besides text? Now, listen, all due respect, you are the queen of, you know, content text, you know, you're so good with this, but I think it's, you know, when you have that down, you have it done right. It's just, again, so complimentary to add something, some sort of design element in there.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I'm on the same page. And even though my area of expertise is more in kind of the written word, I'm a big advocate for like static imagery, videos, anything that will help complement and kind of add to the experience. I wish I could kind of contribute to that a little more, but I'll stick to my words for now.
Yeah, you know, you're the subject matter expert in the world of content, and not everyone can say that, Brianne. Definitely not myself. So thank you for all that you do.
Wow, thanks, Candace. A few other things I just wanted to kind of touch on in terms of graphics. They're kind of just overlooked sometimes. The first is just to make sure that your logo is really prominent. It's such a good trust builder when you have your logo on your promotions, whether you're creating social posts or emails or even on your landing page. It helps people just have like some level of recognition with you. And it is so easy to forget once you get caught up in all of the other kind of exciting graphics and copy and everything that we've just been talking about. So make sure your logo is somewhere so people understand you're the person putting this on, and they can kind of build a level of trust in that sense. Also, optimizing for your most used device types. This, again, it could go overlooked so easily. But if people are accessing your content mostly through mobile devices, you have to make sure that you optimize for mobile so that you're capturing the majority of your audiences effectively. No one wants, I mean, I use my phone all the time. And if I'm jumping onto a web page and it's just like not looking, or I can't use it the way I want to, I'm not staying on there. Again, you're competing against people's time, right? So as soon as like, if it's not working for someone, you've got to try and make sure that it's optimized for that. My last tip for graphics is keep it simple. We don't want like our visuals to be too like convoluted or busy. We talked about the kind of galaxy themed hero banner that we had. It was pretty simple in like concept. It wasn't necessarily taking away from anything else on the page. It was just adding to what was already there, which is why it kind of worked for us. It caught people's eye, but it wasn't like taking over any copy that was there that was really important for people to consume. It didn't take away from the calls to action. It was just kind of there to enhance the experience. So try and keep it simple, even if you have these grand ideas. Just kind of pare it down to what's most effective for people. A few quick tips for driving action too, since we talked about driving action for copy. I do have a few just really quick takeaways for graphics. So the first is highlight important information within your graphics so that it catches the reader's eye and they can get a really quick takeaway. So like using different colors than the rest of the content can really help bring attention to specific information. Also using shapes to your advantage. So like blocking out call to action buttons and using things like arrows as visual cues to actually point them to what you want them to do. So like an arrow pointing to your call to action is really actually effective in getting people to take that action or to at least notice where to go next.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to kind of take a quick note. We actually offer creative services for your event at vFairs. So we can create graphics, copy, promotional items in order to help you better promote your event. Since planning requires so many moving parts, we've already talked about so many moving parts just in the promotional planning side of it. We haven't even really talked about content itself, pulling it all together. So it's just a huge like one piece that you can offload if you don't have bandwidth for it, or if you just rather leave it to our team of marketing experts. We can take care of that for you. I know it's a lot to consider on top of the actual feat of like building a virtual event itself.
Yeah, I mean, that'll definitely be another episode too, where we really dive into creative services and all that we offer from our side. I know a lot of teams are kind of strapped. There's oftentimes we hear of teams who are like, hey, I'm a team of 3 people, or sometimes I'm a team of 1 person. And, in those cases, we want to be able to really extend a hand out there to customers and help them with a lot of their marketing, items that they need help with, because it's one thing to be in marketing. It's another thing to just kind of know a little bit about it, and need some help too. You can't do all the things and I'll do all the things really well too. So that's why we're here to help. But yes, we have launched our creative services. We have, really the whole gamut out there, don't we, Brianne? Copy, graphics, content, video editing, walkthrough videos we can do. So yeah, we have it all, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we haven't actually touched on any content like I just mentioned. So I'll start diving into a little bit more about kind of how to pull all of this stuff together. So you spent a lot of time developing messaging, researching, writing copy, designing effective graphics, videos, GIFs, whatever is most kind of useful. So when you're pulling it all together, there are some common pieces of content to consider. I know we've already touched on this as kind of our main example. So let's talk about landing pages a little bit more in depth. I think it's a good example because it has all of those different elements. We've got the copy, we've got the calls to action, we've got all of the graphics. It kind of pulls everything together into a central location, and then it also drives them to take action. So your landing page is going to follow a specific flow. First, you need to confirm to people that they're in the right place, right? And give them the most basic information. So include your event details, event name, date, time, location, your logo, all of those kind of really basic elements we've talked about. Like we already said too, it's really helpful to have like a big, bold graphic, video, or a GIF at the top of your page. And if you've kind of followed the tips that we've already laid out, it's not going to take away from the copy. It'll just enhance it and work to make sure that we're grabbing as many people's attention right away. Another impactful way to grab people's attention when they get onto your landing page is to host a pop-up video that plays automatically and just starts giving people more information about your event really quickly. Then you need to dive into the what. So what is this event about? You can either create like an overview video. So again, that pop-up element can kind of cover the what of everything, or you can write up about what your event seeks to achieve and then lead right into those value props that we talked about. So those are the whys you've come up with for each audience. Then you want to give your audiences some additional context and information. And this is going to support your value prop. So if people are joining for a conference to learn about a specific topic or to hear from someone specific, that's where you're going to put your agenda and your speaker bios. If people are joining a trade show to meet with the industry's top vendors, that's where you show off your exhibitor logos, any information that helps contextualize the value of your event. You're going to want to include that on your page after you've given them a little bit of context and information. And then you can start driving the user toward action. So include prominent calls to action to purchase a ticket, submit a speaker application, download the sponsor brochure, whatever kind of goals you want to achieve on the landing page. The calls to action don't need to be at the end of the page. I just put it last because it seems like the natural last step. You should have them pretty highly visible as they scroll. So keep them at the menu at the top of the page, add some calls to action buttons under each section that you're showing value, and give them like a few opportunities to notice the next steps that you want them to take. There are also some like add-ons that you can include in your landing page. So for example, you can include a button to add the event to their Gmail or Outlook or any other calendar so that attendees don't miss it on the day of the event. Or like a social media wall, which could really help encourage your registrants to start posting and sharing the word and building hype about the event before it even begins. You're also creating user-generated content that you can then share in your other promotional materials or even post-event as a recap. So there's lots of little add-ons that you can include in your landing page to get people invested. And I know at vFairs, we have our dedicated project managers who show you lots of different landing page examples you can use or at least draw on for inspiration. And they give really awesome advice about what you can add to your own landing page to make it better and actually help you hit your own specific goals for your event.
Yeah, and the templates that the project managers are so good with sharing with customers too. It's great to see examples. I know when, I was a customer with vFairs, but before I came onto the team, it helped me immensely because not only was I kind of bogged down in the whole planning aspect of it, sponsorship, making sure sponsors are taken care of, their booths are getting built out, but I needed to see what other people in the industry that I was in was doing, when you're in healthcare or you work for a university or you work for, a big logo type company, you want to see what others similar to what you do in the same industry are doing too, because it gives you inspiration. It helps you to even maybe go, oh, that's great. They do that. Let me take a little bit of this here. Let me take a little bit of this over here. And before you know it, you've created your own landing page. And that's what is the great thing. I would really recommend listeners, when they see that landing page, not to get overwhelmed. Think of it as just a blank slate, a blank canvas. It is for you to put your own color to it. And it's not, one size fits all. For every single, customer that we have, every single landing page has a different type of, look and feel. And that's the way that it should be. So you can create your own type of format too. If you want the video at the top, you can have that there. If you want the, the hero image in the middle of the page, you can do that as well. So it's really versatile, the landing page. I always really like to encourage, others out there with the landing page. Think about what you want it to be. And, most likely it can be created, or if it's not already in place, it can just be turned on and added. So, and the CTA is really good there. I think usually what we have 2 CTAs towards the top when we do our events, and maybe one at the very bottom. If you have a long landing page, I would recommend one at the very bottom. Wouldn't you kind of pass the sponsor logos, the FAQs? If it's quite a long scroll on the landing page, would recommend a CTA at the very bottom in that kind of case. Wouldn't you, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can even make your menu sticky, right? So as they scroll, your CTA can actually stay in the screen the whole time that they're learning
Yeah.
about the event. That's a really good way just to keep it top of mind as they're learning about what's in store for them.
Yeah, great tip there. So moving on to SEO. Boy, do we get this topic coming up all the time. So we're going to talk about it today. So with SEO, how does it play into an event landing page? I mean, if I didn't know anything about SEO, where would I even start? So take us through that. We get this question so many times, and it's always tough to answer it because it's, again, it's not one size fits all. It's for, a different specific type of, customer looking to go in that area, but walk us through it.
Yeah. I think SEO is so popular because it's been drilled into everybody's heads, not just marketers, but everybody who has put content online, that it has to be SEO optimized. For event landing pages, that may or may not be true. Most event landing pages, they're only live for a few weeks. And the purpose is to get people informed and get them to participate in an event. And then after that, it's kind of forgotten about until the next event, if it even is kind of reuse the same page. Also, ranking on search engines takes a really long time. I spend the majority of my week just trying to figure out how to better rank on search engines for pages that have been up for like over a year at this point. And search engines are getting so smart. Like, they want to show people the most authoritative content for a given topic, which usually an event landing page is not going to provide. The event itself might be the most authoritative, but the event landing page probably won't be. And depending on the keywords you're trying to rank for as well, like I said before, if it's a really niche topic, maybe you can actually really easily rank for a specific keyword. If a lot of people are talking about similar types of topics, it might be too competitive to get any real traction in a short amount of time. And it goes beyond just the copy you write. There's a lot of on-page and technical SEO considerations that might not be worth your time in the instance of landing pages, especially if you're not an expert at it. It just takes so much input to be able to rank for really competitive keywords. So like in this case, SEO might not even be worth your consideration. If you have a long-standing event, I know some people host events that are open all year. And maybe if your goal is to get as many people there as possible, it could be worthwhile to consider. But I would suggest either having an expert actually give you advice on how to help that page rank. Otherwise, for the majority of events, it's just not the case. One thing you could consider is creating a piece of online content following your event that covers in depth all of the subject matter that you covered. Because this type of content would be better suited to try and rank for, and it checks a lot of boxes. So it's likely going to live online long term, it's authoritative, and you have a lot more opportunities to actually optimize it to rank. But generally, when we get these kind of questions, if you're using other channels to promote your events, like social media, email, industry communities, and forums, any kind of like really quick distribution channels, you can probably find success just sticking with those.
Okay, cool. And you just mentioned using other channels like social media, et cetera, to promote your event. And I know we'll be discussing promotional strategies in another episode as part of this 3-part series, but what types of content should people consider creating for different channels?
That's a really good question. So some assets that you should for sure consider are emails and social media posts. So you want to create graphics with like key takeaway copy that you can include in each of these types of content. And keep in mind, with any distribution channel, the goal is to get people back to your landing page. That's a centralized hub. So the main goal is to get them to click. It's not necessarily to get them to register. It's just to get them to learn more or drive action on your landing page. You don't need to share all of the information that you do on your landing page in your social media and email content. You just want to give them enough to want to learn more or to take action. So there are some basic things you can include, especially in your launch campaigns. So like things like basic event details, date, time, location, event title, your value props, just make them really concise, especially when it comes to email and social. Again, you're competing I can't even tell you how many emails I get in my inbox a day or how many social media posts I scroll through a day. So you need to keep everything super concise. Go back to that messaging that you've already created based on all of the research that you've done, how people are talking about your topics, just those really quick takeaways that are actually speaking in their language, and then a call to action to click through. And then you can use the same elements we talked about previously in your copy to drive action. So scarcity, FOMO, exclusivity, just make sure people know there's a limit of some sort to encourage them to really act now. Don't overcomplicate it with more than that, especially in your initial announcement material. As your campaign unfolds, you can maybe take snippets from the rest of your landing page and elaborate on them a little bit. So maybe closer to the event, you can share your agenda, or maybe you want to do a speaker kind of showcase on a social media carousel. Those things can kind of be taken care of. But again, it's not showing everything on your landing page. It's just one small snippet at a time. And it's just to create a little bit more value for the people who are engaged.
Yeah, I think one thing that people like to see, in this case, if we're talking about a virtual event, is to see some sort of sneak peek. Again, creating that FOMO, the scarcity, the exclusivity, the three that you talked about earlier. I've seen it really beneficial when, maybe a simple social media post includes hey, here's a quick snippet of the lobby and what you can expect. And of course, it needs to be dynamic. It needs to be stellar. It needs to be, again, just eye candy. Maybe it's the lounge. Maybe that's where you put a lot of your creativity in, where people actually want to register to go there, of course, to listen to the sessions, whatever the main goal for your event is to, but you have to have multiple things these days to really have a sustainable event where people want to come and stay there, and, move around and network. There has to be more than just one goal of an event these days, is what I'm finding, especially post-pandemic. So again, I'm getting in more event planning ideas and things there. But again, going back to that post, just showing just a really cool, kind of mirroring the whole graphics thing that we talked about, FOMO, post a little sneak peek of what they can look at inside, because a lot of people still have not been to virtual events and they don't even know what this is. What does it look like? How does this work? And giving them even a little, tutorial video beforehand really creates that spark of interest and excitement. Now, going back to, the hype that we talked about, one example of this is how we leverage Cameo, to all of you out there who know and love Cameo like myself, to help build hype around DiscoverNext, which, we've talked about that earlier in the episode 2, our vFairs user conference that we did this year and last year. We use Cameo, which if any of you don't know what Cameo is out there, it helps you book celebrities to record a short video from a script that you actually provide them. So you tell the celebrity what to say on video, which is so much fun. I mean, there are hundreds of celebrities if you go to Cameo's website to pick from. And so how we leveraged this was we had a couple of Cameo videos and we actually stitched them together. But we had, what was it, Brianne? Napoleon Dynamite. We had Kenny G, we had Lisa Loeb, several others. I mean, who doesn't want to see Kenny G playing the sax and saying, hey, come to this event? And then he just plays this random sax solo. I mean, it's hilarious and so much fun. But it's just another way to be creative on your landing page. Also, you can use it with social media posts, add it to your e-blast. So there's, ways to really leverage one thing to have many uses during the whole stages of planning these events.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And okay, so we touched on that a little bit. What other content would someone need when starting to market their event like this?
So there's one thing that we've kind of touched on in our discussion throughout the last few minutes, especially, but I want to circle back to it just to share a few more considerations, and that's video content. I know I mentioned that statistic about video converting 2 to 3x compared to static imagery, but I also know that people can feel really intimidated by videos. Even myself, I've been asked to sometimes create videos and it's just my brain can't compute it. So if you have like a team of experts at your disposal, which thankfully at vFairs we do, you can create really high quality like sizzle reels, announcement videos, event overview videos that could target all your different audiences.
Yeah. And, it really does seem daunting and intimidating when, you're just told, go shoot this video. Here's this. And where do I even start? Lighting comes to mind, sound quality, video quality, what you're going to wear. I mean, all these things, right? It's like, I need to go get a haircut for this. All the things you didn't expect to think about, right? But, when you don't have the resources to create these things, what do you do? Where do you go? What are some things smaller teams can do to create video material for their events?
So I'm going to plug vFairs again, but we actually offer a service where we help create videos to promote your event from scripting all the way to production. And so it's always an option to work with us when you're trying to create those types of content. And again, it just helps offload something to our team of marketing experts who can create those really high quality videos that you might need. If you're looking to do it on your own though, I've seen teams who have created really successful promotional videos that only require like someone to record themselves shouting out the event. So you're sharing all of the information that you need to the value prop, the event details, and a call to action. But they're not full of animations or like wild production elements. They're really personalized, and sometimes they do help humanize the event. So you could ask your team to record these, or if you really want to make a splash, ask your sponsors, speakers, top tier exhibitors to create an announcement post or shout out video that you can share. This is really great content to repurpose on your landing page, on your social media, in email communications, and it probably incentivizes them to also share out to their audiences. So you're getting a greater reach that way by leveraging one piece of content to share out to a larger kind of audience that they have access to.
Yeah, and it's one thing to really have this highly produced video, which looks beautiful. And it's also, more on someone's level if it's just shot in your home and your home office is behind, or, over the pandemic, I don't know about you, but being on so many meetings, so many calls, even some, videos, promo videos for events, that we did, it was kind of nice just seeing someone in their natural element and, not in this, crazy production studio, which is also, all due respect, love those two. But it just gives a sense of, hey, like this is like, I'm inviting you into this space, where I live, where I work, that sort of thing, that really kind of captivates someone. So getting your event partners, again, like you mentioned, your sponsors really involved in this idea is great for them to actually help record and promote the event too. They'll likely share it to their audiences and kind of outreach to their networks. And that's what we all want, going back to the audience, knowing your audience, and then having those people convert from being registrants to attendees is huge. And it really helps to extend your reach as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it helps kind of make things feel a little more relatable, a little more welcoming, even if speakers are doing the same thing, just kind of inviting you from their own home to speak with them. If it's an influencer speaker, that's even better, right? Because it does have that kind of personal touch where people are a little bit more incentivized. They feel like they could actually one-on-one have a conversation with them at this event. So
yeah, it's a great approach for any event planner who wants to increase their event's reach, So Brian, do you have any final takeaways you like to share when it comes to creating content that will effectively help market their events for anyone out there who's listening?
Yeah, I think a few of the key takeaways are, firstly, not to discount or skip over any of the inputs that are required before you even begin producing content. Obviously, I'm a content marketer, so the more time you can allocate to researching how to communicate with your audience, the better. That's always like my golden rule. Also, get really creative with the content you develop. I think it's a common thread that there are tons of options when it comes to creating content. Like we were talking about with the landing pages, it can feel so overwhelming. But it should be an opportunity to try and think of new elements that could be helpful for your audience. Like what I said with video, even if you're intimidated, there are still ways for your team, even if it's small, to do it. There's just lots of different ways to create content. It all comes down to keeping in mind what your audience needs and what you need from them. A really good way also to get inspired is to like talk to other events professionals, right? So you were an events professional even before coming over to vFairs, and hearing your experience for us, it's been really valuable, right? So if you can join communities that kind of help professionals just from all industries solve problems, talk about different things that they face when they're planning events, get ideas from each other, get inspiration, that's really helpful too. We actually just launched our Eventpreneurs community, which tries to address exactly that. There's so much confusion and overwhelm, it seems, when it comes to trying to figure out even what kind of event format you want to plan, right? Virtual or hybrid or in person. What's the best one that I should do? What do people want right now? How do I keep people in virtual events really like tied into the event and locked in during the time that I need them for? So that community is really helpful just to kind of idea share and talk to other people, even if they're not in your industry, to get the best kind of everything and share ideas and get inspired. Mm-hmm. Or like I said, you can always consider outsourcing your marketing services to a team of experts. Like we offer a ton of different stuff here at vFairs. I know we already talked about some of it. We even do paid ads. So if you want a little boost in reach, we can help you with that. And then have fun with it. Planning events and creating content, it can be really overwhelming, but like events and marketing at their core, there's more fun aspects of the business world. So try and keep it light and make sure those fun elements really shine through for your audience.
I couldn't agree with your last point. That's probably one word that I overuse here at vFairs. You really should have fun with it. Events, they can be stressful. It can be overwhelming to start, even back to that planning that landing page and then all the content and keeping sponsors happy, all these sorts of things. But you know what? Don't worry. Everything works out, right?
Yeah.
But one thing for me specifically is, throughout this whole thing, you talking really about content and how we're here to support here at vFairs as well. But I really hope the audience, walks away today with these takeaways, feeling inspired and ready to tackle their next event. So thank you so much, Brianne, for joining us today and really deep diving into how to create great content to market your event. I hope, again, all of you out there are inspired as you take away from this episode today. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. This is the first in a series of 3 for the event marketing episode. So don't forget to tune in to our future episodes, which will be posted soon, where we'll cover how exactly to get all these amazing content pieces that you're hearing about out to your audiences through different marketing channels. And Brianne, side note, I hope you're going to be talking about TikTok along the way. So maybe, I'm not going to ask you now, but maybe the next one. Yeah, maybe. Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. If you're interested in the vFairs event marketing or creative services that we discussed today, please make sure to get in touch with us here at vFairs. Even your project manager, reach out to them, your CSM. You can even email us at sales@vfairs.com to learn more. And as a reminder, you will receive a follow-up email from us with a recording link so you can watch it again and share it with others. Thanks again, Brianne, and everyone for joining us. Until next time, peace, love, virtual events. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.